again. We are hurtling through our intense programme of events at the Climate Chamber Mission here in the city they call the Dear Green Place. COP26 is here. We're here coming to you in person or via screen, wherever you are. We are buzzing with energy. We are getting through the day and we're inspired. So many interesting angles to interrogate over the next hours and tomorrow as well as we continue. More interesting people on the way and topics. 2 breakout sessions just to let you know what's happening if you're joining us now on screen. One is available only in person, I'm afraid, and that is the Smart Cities, new way to develop zero carbon communities. That session is going to be held in the Smart Cities room at the City of Glasgow College. You can access the Race to Net Zero breakout with me by staying exactly where you are if you're here, or hopping into the Hop On platform, and we're going to look at businesses and how they can deliver on climate targets next. That's taking place 45 minutes, we reckon, for the session, and then we will reconvene. We'll all get together again for some B2B meetings. But anyway, let me press on with what we've got here. An increasing recognition that the business world needs to play a central role in meeting net zero, of course, as industrial activities are the biggest contributor to rising temperatures on the planet. I'm sure you already know that. The World Bank estimates that $4 trillion of finance needs to be mobilized annually to invest in mitigation and resilience, and most of this needs to be financed by the private sector. As the engine of the global economy, business is uniquely placed to deliver the reductions needed to guarantee humanity a positive future. That's what we're all about. Embracing the zero carbon transformation is already unlocking business and economic benefits. So we've assembled a really lovely and extremely varied panel for this session. And it's probably best if they introduce themselves and I shut up. You're probably bored stupid listening to me by now. So I'm going to ask this lovely man right beside me, Stuart Chidley, another Chamber Circular Glasgow ambassador, is that right?
That's right.
To tell us a bit about yourself. Hello.
Hi.
Tell us more.
So I'm Stuart from Beauty Kitchen, co-founder with my wife Jo, and we are a circular economy beauty business, but we are now venturing out to create a circular economy enabler business called which we are launching tonight.
Explain a little bit more about that. I'm intrigued.
So the barriers to the circular economy are wide and varied, as everyone knows, and brands, retailers, consumers need access, and it's hard. And we are creating basically a whole system approach to enable brands, retailers and consumers to participate in FMCG circular packaging.
Oh, sounds wonderful. Thank you. Let's welcome Stuart to the panel. Very lovely to have you here with us. We're moving on now. There's somebody on your right-hand side. And you are Greg Lucas, and you're going to tell us why you're here and who you are.
So a big thank you for inviting me along today. It's a real honour to be here. My name's Greg Lucas. I am the UK and Ireland Sustainability Manager for Ikea. Ikea, as you may well know, is a purpose-led organisation. Our overarching vision is to create a better everyday life for the many people. And in order to achieve that, we need to transform and reassemble our whole business, and including our value chain as well. So this is including the way that our customers purchase, utilise and pass on our products to, as well as everything all the way down to looking at the supply chain and where our materials come from. We have a strategy to achieve this. We call this our People and Planet Positive strategy. And within that, there's a whole raft of different areas in terms of how we've already started the journey within the decade of climate action. A lot of those commitments go to 2030. So transforming the business to become climate positive by 2030, reducing greenhouse gas emissions more than the entire value chain within IKEA emits by 2030 is one of the key ones. And this is in line with the science, in line with the science-based targets to keep and limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. Linked to that as well is obviously transforming into a circular organisation, and I'll go into a little bit more detail hopefully a bit later around that. And then inspiring and enabling the many people to live a more healthy and sustainable life, as well as investing and going beyond to create a fair and equal society as well.
So not much.
Not much, no.
Okay, it's great to have you with us, and you're
Thank you.
also partners of hashtag COP26 Glasgow Ikea, I should mention that too. And by the way, if Greg's looking exhausted and might have to lie down in a dark room, he's just bombed it up from the blue zone, so he's straight from where all the action is. Let's go to somewhere more serene now, to Fahmida Banger. She's Silicon Valley based. Hello Fahmida, President of Sustainability for IT Renew. Fahmida, it's lovely to have you with us. I wish you were here. The sun is actually out in Glasgow for a change. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Hello, Claire. Good morning and good afternoon to you all. Really, really happy to be part of this great panel. I wish I was there too, but I say hello to you from California. It looks like a good morning so far. I am Vice President for Sustainability for a circular economy company, IT Renew. We work with the world's leading global hyperscalers in the information communication technology industry, and we're part of the solution to net zero goals that many companies have set in this decade of climate action, as it was said so aptly. Our solutions are super interesting, and like many other circular economy company, we're really paying attention to closing the loop and keeping the loop open for all supply chain players to participate. To quickly introduce our company's work, we decommission the large data center equipments, and then after data cleansing, we are able to harvest the parts that are reusable, and then repackage, recertify them into full rack solutions for towards net zero data center solution-oriented companies that are interested in those products. This is a truly fully global closed-loop solution that's been proven, tried, and tested. We are a part of the net zero solution, and I look forward to talking to more about how it truly yields all the benefits of sustainability, environmentally, socially, and of course, economically. So nice to be part of this panel and looking forward to talking more.
Finally, to someone who has a very prominent job in Glasgow, Derek Provan, are you at an airport by any chance? Because
I certainly am, Claire. I'm watching many aircraft depart and arrive just now from the very area that you're at.
What your job is, and a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah, of course. Derek Provan, I'm the Chief Executive of AGS Airports. We are the second largest airport group in the UK. We own Aberdeen, Glasgow and Southampton airports. And as you say, today, over the last 48 hours, it's been extremely busy, and it continues to be so for the next 2 weeks. And of course, we've had quite a challenging last almost 2 years, as you can imagine, with the pandemic, and of course we also have to make sure that we can deliver on our climate change measures and targets. We have a target to be net zero by mid-2030s. All of our airports today are currently carbon neutral, and we are leading the way globally in many cases on how aviation can not only play its part but be a facilitator for everyone else. I think today it's really key for us that we play an integral part with not just industry but also with the government. But of course, to do that, we need players to collaborate, and we need to have alliances and partnerships that can make that difference, because no business, no industry or no country can meet those challenges on their own. None of us have the resources or expertise to do that, so we have to come together. And I think that's the message we want to get out, that we want to work with people to deliver the net zero targets that we all have. But to do that, we need a more collaborative approach. Simplistic messages for the most complicated conundrum mankind has had to face just doesn't really cut it.
We're all about, Derek. Thank you very much. I should mention the city's airport recently got GRESB accreditation. That's one of the leading ESG benchmarking standards for commercial real estate. Please welcome your panel. They're all fantastic. I wish they were here, as I say, all together. So We've got a lot to get through. I'm going to start with you, though, Stuart, and tell us a little bit about how the circular economy approach has allowed your business to pivot or indeed be set up as a startup company.
Yeah, so Joe and I started Beauty Kitchen really as a demonstrator of what was possible, because businesses have a lot of barriers or excuses of why they can't do things. It's got to be commercially viable, and what we wanted to do was to prove that reuse and the circular economy was commercially viable. And in doing that, we created Return, Refill, Repeat, which is the reusable packaging system, so that other brands can share the packaging and can share with consumers. So this bottle here is a smart asset that's a reusable asset, it's uniquely marked. And this is a buy anywhere, return anywhere, reuse anywhere. So multiple brands, and we're announcing some of those tonight, will be using exactly the same bottle. So no longer are they selling their packaging, they're selling their product, and they're using product as a service.
That's a huge change, isn't it?
It is a huge change, and this is coming back to the point that Derek made about collaboration. These things don't change without collaboration, and working together, because nobody does have all of the answers. But by working with major brands such as Unilever, Asda, Co-op, and the few that we're announcing tonight, we believe that we can share the packaging. It can be packaging that consumers borrow, that they return for reuse.
Do you think the time's right for that, from a consumer point of view and from a business point of view?
It's absolutely right, in that 98% of consumers say they want to buy more sustainable products. And that doesn't follow through in action at the moment. But there's a huge issue with accessibility. So having stood in a store in the south of Leeds for 2 weeks talking to consumers, it's not a demographic thing. It's not a I don't have the money to do it, and it's not that it needs to be expensive. It's purely about access and consistency of messaging, rather than a race to the bottom where people market their products as being more good when in fact they're just less bad. And we've got to start designing for the future. Just like with the digital economy when that came along, and if you didn't do it right and you didn't design your business to achieve the goals of the digital economy and maximise them, you can't retrofit it. So you have to start rethinking your whole business model to enable the circular economy.
Same question to you, Greg, but what about Ikea? What's happening and how can you translate that?
Yeah, and as you heard earlier, there's quite a lot going on at the moment, keeping us busy. But transforming into a circular business, we're part way along that journey already. So by 2030, all of our products will be made from regenerative or renewable materials. We're introducing new circular services all the time and co-creating them with our customer base as well, and across the organisation. And I think the kind of innovation aspect that Stuart touched on there as well is a really, really key part within organisations that for many organisations I think was lost for a little while, and starting to redevelop for those organisations looking at embracing the circular economy, going out talking to their customers, be them business customers or consumers and people within society, is a great first step to start to bring together the relevant functions, the relevant individuals within their business. But as we've heard from Derek as well, that radical collaboration is required as well to be able to transform and accelerate too. It's not just about the material streams either. So it's about offering services, as Stuart was saying, that's affordable and accessible. And as experts in life at home, and home not just being the four walls that we live in, but also looking at local communities as well, we know that there are huge barriers when it comes to accessibility and affordability of so-called circular or sustainable products. So being able to offer them at the right price to the many people, and co-creating that and supporting as well in terms of new skills with consumers through workshops, through using kind of our stores as hubs as well to bring households together, to bring other organisations and third parties together to grow and learn together, has been a part of the journey to bring us where we are today.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you something that kind of conflates what's happening with climate change and also what's happened with the pandemic. Do you think now, Greg, that society and business is now thinking completely differently because it's had to? It's been forced to be innovative, to to break rules, to be more collaborative, to think outside the box? Do you think this is the best opportunity we've had in a bizarre way because of a pandemic?
And I think it's from before the pandemic as well it started, but the pandemic certainly accelerated and amplified it as well. But I think looking back to starting to work with Ikea about 6 years ago, and that's where kind of a lot of the co-creation was already developing. You may have seen our buyback and resell service that we offer to customers where they can bring back an old Ikea product. We have the infrastructure within Ikea. We employ around 400 people across the UK and Ireland, many of whom have come from backgrounds like carpentry, who are able to recover, reuse and resell a lot of those products, keeping products in use for longer. And customers love that. And what we've started adding to a lot of those buyback products is little labels where when a customer brings back a product, they can write about how they use that product, where it was in their home, their memories around it, and then that can be linked to the products in our circular hubs, giving a bit of an emotional attachment that the journey of that product isn't finished here. In fact, it's moving on to the next step within its journey. And then linked to that, the workshop aspect, especially I think hearing around from a lot of our customers about loss of skills. Selling flat pack furniture that you need to assemble, loss of skills is a bit of a danger in terms of the future. So being able to work together with our customers to look at skills, anything from kind of personalization, we offer free spare parts as well, and beyond to really embrace the circular economy and grow and transform to meet our commitments to 2030.
I'm going to ask, before we move on to Derek and Famida there, maybe one of you would explain the difference between a net zero and a circular economy approach, if you can crunch that down. I don't know who wants to attempt that one. Okay. Go on.
So, net zero?
Yeah.
Carbon neutral, but not with offsetting. And circular, and I guess this is where our real heart is eliminating waste as well. And I think I would add to that, so we follow cradle-to-cradle principles. We've cradle-to-cradle certified the majority of our products, and the bottle's just going through certification at the moment. And it goes beyond carbon. I think that's really important. So plastic waste, the environmental damage, the link to biodiversity, social fairness, social inclusion, those are, there's a lot of talk about net zero, but there are 3, 4, 5 other pillars that we must address at the same time.
Absolutely. Okay, let's whiz over to Famida now and look at the benefits that a zero carbon transformation is unlocking for industry and the economy. Tell us about your experience, Famida, and what you think the opportunities are.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for going over the definition of zero carbon and circularity, because while they are related, they're not the same. I like to, for IT Renew, we've defined circularity as a delivery mechanism towards net zero or carbon neutrality. So the methodologies that are applied in circularity principle, of course, it includes reuse, reduce, and recycle, all of them combined. It actually gets us to net zero faster, and it also gets us to zero waste faster. So think of it as a composite approach. It's a highway that gets you to the goals a little faster. So our company, we were fortunate to actually start out in the recycling business about 2 decades ago with the IT hardware equipment from data centers. So had that experience, and about a decade ago, did a lot of analysis to see where the industry was going, and realized this whole carbon equation. The scopes are very well, it needs to be well understood for all of us to know why circularity works. Scope 1 and 2, all the direct emissions and the indirect, electricity and other power supply, we can do a lot of it, and those are absolutely the right steps to take towards zero carbon. But there are also essentially solutions that you're running to stand still, so to speak. It's not until you apply the carbon reduction in your value chain, where all your scope 3 emissions are, that you really start to get to net zero. So it's very important to acknowledge that companies, sometimes they set targets not on all 3 of their scopes, but just the first 2. But when you include scope 3, which is typically majority of the carbon emissions, that net zero target is really the true net zero carbon neutrality target, so to speak. So in our business, about a decade ago, we saw that when you do the life cycle analysis of IT equipment, and just to take a step back, information communication technology, I mean, it's running our lives, it's running our economy, but the data centers are really the infrastructure behind it. That's really where the work is, and that's really where the carbon is too. 75% of the data center carbon is embedded. They're coming from all the scope 3 sources. So we really dug deeper into how can we work on that and how can that be part of the net zero solution. So I explained a little bit earlier, there is reuse of equipment is a big part of the solution. There is really no way to get to all of the net zero goals without going through the vehicle of reuse, because the current inventory of equipment is so large, and there is more to come, that unless we keep that out of the e-waste stream and reuse and extend the product life after repair, that if we don't take part of that equation, there's actually no net zero to be had. And then that takes us to a better understanding of avoided emissions. I know it's a term that is thrown around and maybe not well defined today, but the work we do keeps emissions out and keeps the products in the loop for as long as possible, and that's how we are addressing getting to net zero. Some of the metrics I want to share that's really important, and I think it'll resonate with Derek and Stuart as well. When we recertify our products and to secondary markets and customers, they have tremendous cost advantage, up to 50% cost reduction. Think of it as recertified luxury cars that somebody else has driven first. It's the same industry standards, the right products, has a long life, but it's half the cost. It also creates opportunities to enter the market. 41% of the world is still not online. How is that going to happen unless we extend the product life of the equipment, the IT equipment that's available today? So it creates universal access in a way that's otherwise not cost effective for parts of the world or parts of the businesses. And then, of course, to end with the carbon story, through our work, by working with all the global hyperscalers who do business with us for their IT data center equipment, we are avoiding about 75% of the embedded emissions that otherwise would have incurred in their carbon targets as well.
Information, it is fascinating stuff. A lot of nodding going on here as well. I don't know, Greg, if you wanted to briefly, before Derek jumps in, you want to say anything, because you were nodding along.
I know, it was fantastic. I know, nodding along, I think the way you explained it was both relatively simple and well laid out, particularly the focus on Scope 3 emissions, and impressed, I think, with the work that you've undertaken.
Well, let's turn to Derek now, because, I mean, there's so much to get through. Asking you about zero carbon transformation and unlocking opportunities for the industry. What's your take on it, and what you've heard as well from Famida?
Yeah, I think I agree completely with Famida, although I think there are probably some slight changes on industry, and that may just be maturity. But certainly we are a large infrastructure organisation, so decarbonisation is key for us to reach our net zero. But the circular economy, the difference for me is, one is a set of programs that we have to put in place to change our infrastructure to help us decarbonise. There is a large element of a difference in operating models and a difference in behaviour, but circular economy for me is purely a behavioural change. It's about thinking about the difference in how we operate. And so to give you some examples, and I have to say, 10 years ago, if you spoke to aviation about decarbonisation, we would probably break into a cold sweat because we wouldn't be quite sure how we were prepared to do that. And circular economy, even 3 years ago, for us was something that would scratch our head around, how do we do this? How do we do what has pretty much been a apart from technology, an environment and an experience that's not changed for decades. And actually, the minute we put our head to it, it's clear that there's so many different things that we can do. So, for example, we were the first to put LED lighting in all of our runways. Next year, that lighting is about to be recycled. So those elements will come out and be recycled and new elements will go in. The other thing about our business is we are only one player in an airport. We have 100 business partners that are operating in our airports today, and so therefore a lot of that waste doesn't come directly from us, but does come, as Famida says, from business partners and supply chain. And some of the examples of where circular economy becomes just a normal part of our business now, the security bags that you use when you're going through the security areas, we were the first in the UK to bring biodegradable security bags in. So these security bags biodegrade within 24 months, which is an issue for supply chain, because if we buy too many, we end up with a box of water rather than a box of plastic bags. But also things like cup recycling. So when you buy your coffee from Starbucks or from Costa, we recycle tens of thousands of cups every single year. And then one that I'm really, really proud of, and that is our food waste. So all of our food waste is turned into a biogas and fertiliser that then gets put onto the farms of the local farmers in and around our airports. And we buy our produce from them as well. So the food waste goes back to generate the new food that we use in the airports. So there are so many areas that, quite frankly, if the aviation industry can lead the way, and you mentioned Gresby, another thing we're really proud of, we took first, second and third place in Gresby this year in the UK, and 5th, 7th and 9th globally as a company. So it shows that, you know, this is an industry that people may look at as a heavy carbon polluter and a big infrastructure organisation, but actually we can lead the way in how we can change the world, and all of the benefits that come with that are clear.
Surprised to hear you saying all this, because I don't think that message is out there yet. And I'm also surprised to hear you say that maybe 3 years ago, as recently as that, you guys were still confused about what the circular economy was. What's changed that?
So I think it was said earlier on, I do think the pandemic's accelerated the change that was taking place anyway. I think society has changed, and therefore the colleagues that we bring into the business think differently, and they change the way in which the business operates and thinks also. So there is an external environment that is driving the change, but actually most of the change comes from the internal culture of the organisation, and new generations coming into our businesses now are driving that change.
Listening to this as well, is this ringing a bell with you? And I'm just thinking about the impact that on your business model, the circular business models had on your products as well, Stuart.
Yeah, and just to the point about the team as well, and the passion of the people that are coming to us, the diversity that coming to us saying we want to work for a business like yours. We're the highest scoring beauty B Corp in Europe. I think we're in the top 5 in the UK. And it's like the best recruitment tool in the world. You don't need to advertise. People are coming to you all the time, which is amazing. And the enthusiasm and the passion, you don't need the skills, you need the will and that mindset of we can change the world and we can do this. But coming back to the question, which was oh my goodness, what was I asking you there? Yeah, on the circular business model, what's the impact it's had on your actual products? I think it's forced us to step back and be very open to learning as well. So the reason we do things like B Corp and Cradle to Cradle is because they benchmark you. They let you know where you are currently at, and microplastic free, and this journey of being open to actually we haven't quite got this right. And Cradle to Cradle, which I keep coming back to, there's a platinum standard. There are no platinum products in the world. That's the kind of benchmarking we like to see, because we will move to platinum, and we want to be the first company in the world to have platinum rated products, but we also need other partners and collaborators to make that happen. It's what gets us up in the morning. And, when we're talking to brands and retailers about participating in the circular economy and all of the excuses, finding solutions to those excuses is like the energy. That's the lifeblood of what we do. It's just incredible.
And I think that point around collaboration, we've heard it quite a lot this afternoon. And when we talk about radical collaboration, what does that really look like in practice?
I was just about to ask you.
And for a large organisation like Ikea or many other large organisations, it's about looking not just within the organisation around different functions, different individuals, different skill sets, but I can give you an example of the first time I think I saw radical collaboration, a long time before joining Ikea. It was when we got together with a range of policymakers, consumer specialists and representatives from consumer groups, designers, recyclers, reusers, and we put in the middle of a table a washing machine, a product that hasn't changed a great deal in quite some time. And you can argue, obviously, from an energy efficiency perspective, but it's not completely innovated into something someone from the kind of 1950s or 60s may not recognize. And this session went on, I think, for about 9 or 10 hours around all these different individuals kind of inputting in about what the vision might be for a circular washing machine. And after quite a long day of discussion and kind of capturing everything, we all disappeared off, I think, and came back the next morning. And that next morning, there were two slightly tired faces. The designers and the reusers and the recyclers had spent most of the night together carrying on the discussion beyond that about what was possible, and not having the restraints around prioritization or finance to start off, I think, on the early stages of that radical collaboration was the first time I've seen it. And I've seen it time and time again. It's accelerated, it's gone beyond, and it's something that I think we'll see accelerate and amplify, not just the closed loop and cradle-to-cradle products, but also the new services and the other parts of the circular economy over the next 2 to 3 years.
Can I ask you, Famida, are you embracing radical policies when it comes to this, collaboration, innovation, breaking down the silos with people?
Yes, absolutely. And I wanted to elaborate on the point Derek made. Designers, if they knew what's happening to the end of life of the products that they create, they would be mortified. Designers never create products thinking that it would end up in landfill or that it would get incinerated or it would not be used after 2 years. So radical innovation with the design group is really, really important. And in our industry, in information communication technology, we're starting to see that, where the creators of the chips and the semiconductors and others, they're talking to us saying, hey, what is the end of life of the product that I designed? Where is it ending up? Is it harming the environment? How can we do a better job? And that's the magic moment you want to arrive at, realizing that the creators are seeing the consequences. And then, of course, the decision makers, for us to effectively communicate and for the decision makers to understand the consequences of the planned obsolescence and for how long to keep a product alive, what is the recyclability and the reusability of the product. If it's built from the right materials, it should go on and on for really quite some time. And if it cannot be built from recyclable or reusable materials, perhaps it should not be built at all, because that's what responsible product design is all about. So yes, there is a lot of collaboration going on. A couple of platforms that I wanted to mention, the World Business Council on Sustainable Development, or WBCSD, tremendous innovation going on in those collaborative platforms where the companies, organizations, working together on circular design application, and really kind of providing mechanics on how organizations can transform from linear to circular economy principles, which is, by the way, not a fad. I truly believe that in order to get to zero carbon, we're all going to have to get to some level of circularity, because there's just simply not enough time and not enough way to go about that in a shortcut. Another forum that's particularly relevant in our computing industry, Open Compute Project, and hundreds of big and small major IT companies, global companies, all the brands that we use every day, thinking very seriously about product design, using, manufacturing, and again, that scope 3 emissions accounting that I mentioned. What gets measured gets managed, and there's really no way to achieve full circularity without understanding the scope 3 carbon footprint and exactly how much is being reduced in what proportion. And the last thing I would mention about radical innovation is that it's really the collaborative spirit that's really taken on, and whether it's because of the tragedy of the pandemic or shortage in supply chain, or just us reading the IPCC report and taking 1.5 degrees seriously, there is a sense of urgency and collaboration and camaraderie within an industry and across an industry at a scale and with an intensity that I have never seen before in my 20 years of sustainability practice. So it's both exciting, daunting, and very, very active at the same time. But collaboration is absolutely key because we have to deliver these solutions together.
Absolutely exciting and daunting equal measure. I don't know if anyone in the room would like to ask a question because, there's somebody up there. If you just bear with us, panel, they will get the microphone up to them. Right. Oh yeah, I should tell you as well, I'm getting handed a note just in here. The good news is all the sessions on the Climate Chamber missions have been recorded and they will be available on Glasgow Chamber of Commerce YouTube channel, and that will be there as soon as possible. So you can relive these magic moments, everybody, all over again. Now, let's go to our person in the audience. Sorry, who are you, sir? And can you give us a bit of information about what you're asking?
Yes, I'm Daniel Toole, and I used to work in the IT industry. I'm now an investment banker / philanthropist. But I wanted to ask, I think one big question, which I'm not sure if we purposely avoided, of the airports and the IT industry participants we have in the room here. So any comments on fuel for aviation and any comments on green energy for data centres?
Okay, let's go to Derek first for the fuel part of that. Derek?
Yeah, fantastic. A conversation I wanted to have. And I started speaking about partnerships, and then we spoke about radical collaboration. So two responses to that. Firstly, collaboration and innovation is key, and for us it's innovation with purpose. So we have just over the last 6-7 months been working with the NHS to revolutionise the way healthcare can be delivered to remote rural communities in Scotland by delivery of healthcare by drone. An example of that would be if somebody has a cancer treatment that's required and they need aerated blood, it has to get to them within 2 hours. Currently today, that can take place by road and by sea, and we can now, within the next few months, send that much needed treatment by drone, which is something that's never been done before in Europe, and that will start. Secondly is on aviation fuel. Aviation fuel is obviously the key when it comes to carbonaceous burning and decarbonising this industry. And 2 weeks ago, we joined forces with Boeing to share how far forward we've came in using sustainable aviation fuel. This is fuel that's created from either household waste, agricultural or farming waste. And, many people speak about commitments are great, but action is what we need to see. Well, as I say, 2 weeks ago, we flew a 737 aircraft transatlantic on household waste, a full commercial aircraft. And the issue I think I was sharing earlier on is that at this moment in time, it's a bit like organic vegetables. The fuel costs more if you're using a sustainable aviation fuel, and therefore we need governments, academia and industry to come together to start mass producing so that we can operate on sustainable aviation fuel. Airlines believe it's 65% of their net zero targets, being able to turn fuel from household waste and forestry waste into aircraft. And that's something we're working with government on just now to get that key manufacturing plants in place to allow us to use that.
And very, very briefly, Famida, if you could just say something about green energy and data.
Yeah, so green energy is an essential foundation for the data center infrastructure to be net zero. So it's one of the several key solutions that have to come in for the use phase of the product. You're drawing electricity from the grid that's coming. So whether it's coming from different, whatever types of renewable energy is, that is absolutely a needed solution. So the way to think about it is that there's a stacking order. It's not just one thing that gets you to carbon neutral goals. It's a series of solutions, and decarbonizing the grid so that the electricity is coming from renewable sources, and therefore that's the electricity that's powering the data center, is absolutely an essential step. What I was referring to on the work that IT Renew focuses on is the next step on the circular products. So the products that are already created, how do we continue to extend the product life, use them, and therefore reduce the supply chain carbon emissions?
Well, we're running out of time, but I'm going to get you all to just finally sort of up some, maybe in a sentence, why it's so important we start thinking about circular economy. Stuart.
Because together we can take action, and check out #IceHub.
Lovely bit of marketing there.
And for Ikea, our customers and co-workers are asking for it. It's the decade of climate action, as we've heard today. It's part of the solution, and it is time to act.
Derek?
We can't support infinite growth as we do today on a finite planet's resources.
And Famida?
Circular economy is a fantastic vehicle towards net zero carbon delivery targets, so we got to do it together.
Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's thank our panel, everybody, before we move on to the next bit. A wonderful conversation. We could have talked about a lot more. I'm glad we got round to fuel. It was the list, but we're very glad that we answered those questions. Now, it's been quite a day. Thank you so much, guys, all of you. Quite a day. We're going to concentrate on some of our business-to-business meetings now and networking. It's a chance to let businesses meet individually with one another, and all our delegates have been asked to pre-book the B2Bs via the Hop-In platform. However, if you still fancy doing that, I don't think it's too late. You can get a meeting sorted out on Hop-In right now. A delegate list is at the bottom of your program, that QR code that's somewhere under that pile of rubble there. We'll get you into that. For those of you in Glasgow, you just hop next door or use the spacious atrium to meet some people. This is going to give you about an hour and a half, I think. Back together, please, at 4:45 sharp. For our close-of session, Alison McRae, Senior Director at Glasgow Chamber of Commerce and the lead on the Chamber's COP26 activity, will be with us. Don't miss that. We hope you'll be back then. So 3:45 prompt. Thank you, guys.